Welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks, and today I'm here with another book duos focusing on memoirs from female chefs, but more importantly, members of the LGBTQ plus community. Today I have two different books for you. One, Burn the Place by Ilana Reagan, and the other is Rebel Chef by Dominique Crenn. Let's get started. So let's go ahead and get started with Rebel Chef by Dominique Crenn. This I read just recently in the month of September as an audiobook on the way to my wedding. Pardon my cat walking in and out of frame. He's mad because I won't feed him dinner because he doesn't get fed for another hour. He's a cat. Anyway, Rebel Chef by Dominique Crenn. Dominique Crenn is the only female chef in the United States to have 3 Michelin stars. To read the inside cover for you guys, by the time Dominique Crenn decided to become a chef at the age of 21, she knew it was almost near impossible. It was a near impossible dream in France where almost all restaurant kitchens were run by men. So she left home and everything she knew to move to San Francisco, where she would train under the legendary Jeremiah Tower. Almost 30 years later, Crenn is awarded 3 Michelin stars in 2018 for her influential restaurant Atelier Crenn, and became the first female chef in the United States to receive this honor. No small feat for someone who hadn't gone to culinary school or been formally trained. So Dominique Crenn's book spans her entire childhood through adulthood, and there are lots of struggles throughout the book with her identity that she deals with. One thing that is different in France is that if you are a woman who gives your child up for adoption, you can legally have it sealed away and you will never find out who, the child will never be able to find out who the mother is. I guess this was done to protect the woman at the time, but because of that, Dominique never knows who her mother is for most of her life, or her birth mother, I should say. She has a wonderful relationship with her adopted parents, though. They love her curiosity, her outgoingness, and she has a very special relationship with her father, which her restaurant Atelier Crenn is named in honor of her father, who passed away he passed away before the restaurant was open, so it's kind of an homage to him. So the book is broken up into 3 different parts. The beginning, which is really her childhood, I'd say part 2, where she starts to travel the world, and part 3, which is when her success comes. So the first part of the book, she grows up on a farm, or the role of the farm is so apparent for her love of the food. And while she loves and does have poultry and meat throughout her life, it's really the farm that teaches her that things of the earth, like mushrooms, gourds, etc., they are beautiful and they can be the focus of an entire dish, and she loves that. But when she decides that she wants to become a chef, she realizes that she is too late in France. You pick a career very early, 15 or 16 if I recall correctly from the book, and then you go through the brigade system, and then you work under men, and there, more than ever, the female still is not viewed highly in the restaurant, in the kitchen. So she follows her then boyfriend to San Francisco and just takes off. It's kind of amazing, whom she almost breaks up with within a month of being there. But Dominique is so driven that she immediately finds a job, she finds an apartment, and she just continues to grind, and it's amazing. Part 2, she's further along in her life and she has helped open a restaurant, but she needs to move on. So she goes to Indonesia, of all places, and through a hotel is going to open a luxury restaurant for this luxury hotel. But she learns by being in Indonesia that the hotel is very much for the rich, for the diplomats, and then the rest of the world around it is really living in poverty. But the importance of her time in Indonesia is that Dominique hires local women and teaches them to have jobs and gives them value. And it's a beautiful part of the book where it doesn't advance her career, the hotel, the kitchen, it's not great. And she is terribly, terribly lonely, but the good she does for these women, I think, is extraordinary. The book continues, and she does lose her father, and It's hard every time anyone, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, loses their father. My father's battling cancer. It's very hard for me to like get through it. I remember driving with Dan and he's just listening to me sniffle quietly, but I still want to finish the end of the book. But Dominique really internalizes her grief by working, which I think is a coping mechanism a lot of us can relate to. But eventually she comes back to the United States and opens up her own restaurant. And I'll leave it high level there because I cannot do justice and maybe it's because she's French, I don't know, but it's so beautiful the way she writes, and her emotions and how they channel through her food are so beautiful. She also she has a few different relationships throughout the book. And they are female, they are LGBTQ, and explains her realization as her relationships progress, her realizations of her own identity, that self-discovery and journey. It's beautiful. It is one of my favorite books I've read this year. I would give it a solid 4 out of 5, and I think the hardest part for me is that the book ends on a cliffhanger in the sense that Dominique herself is diagnosed with cancer and is still currently fighting cancer. Can you imagine being a 3 Michelin star chef? You should think the whole world is your oyster, and now she is dealing with an illness herself. I follow her on Instagram. I want to know how she's doing. I have a personal attachment to this story at this point. And maybe books, I will always have that kind of not rose-colored lens, but cancer. Anytime cancer or family or illness comes into books, I find that it's harder for me to review them unbiased, without bias. It actually sometimes makes the books better because I can relate to the pains and the struggles a little bit differently than maybe someone who thankfully has not had to deal with this, whether it's a sick family member or being sick yourself. But I really loved the book. The audiobook is under 5.5 hours, so it's gorgeous. It's not narrated by Dominique herself, which is fine. The narrator does a really good job. I would highly recommend this book. And Dominique, by the end of it, this is a grown woman. She is in her late 40s. Her career takes off much later than a lot of these other chefs in the world who I think view the world, she makes a note of these young and rising chefs. You don't have to have a James Beard by 25. It's okay. Live and let the food have love. And I think that's a really important message, especially in a world where we're watching Chopped and Cutthroat Kitchen and Top Chef. Her journey is different, and I respect her for it. And I also hope she gets well soon. The other book I wanted to talk to you guys about is Burn the Place by Ilana Reagan. This is another memoir. Ilana is younger than Dominique, but she is a female chef and she is a part of the LGBTQ community. It's a singularly powerful, expressive debut memoir that traces one chef's struggle to find her place. And this book Dominique's book actually came out this year, 2020, brand new. And Ilana's book is, I believe, only a year old. It came out, sorry, give me a second, just double check. In 2019. So if you want to talk about contemporary cultural moments, these are both sisters. They're both in the same year, within a year of publication. Ilana's younger, which isn't a bad thing. It's just, let me take a step back. I think growing up and realizing that you're gay or potentially feeling different or feeling of other is very different from generation to generation. I think that Dominique's struggle is very different, also very different culturally than Ilana's. Ilana's lives in the United States. She actually has restaurants here in Chicago, which I really want to try, but COVID. Anyway, sorry. Burn the Place is a galvanizing memoir that chronicles Ilana's journey from foraging on her family farm to running her Michelin-starred restaurant, Elizabeth. Her story is raw, like that first bite of a wild onion, alive with startling imagery, and told with uncommon emotional power. I think this is very true. This is another one of those favorite books, and I obviously seem to have a love and affinity for food memoirs, but this book is powerful and just haunting, and her pains and struggles with identity and self are prevalent throughout the book. And while she wants to be a chef, I think more than anything, she just wants to know who she is and where she belongs in the world. And I love the endorsements that she gets in the back of the book. I mean, Renee Redzepi, wrote a quote for the back of this book, Eric Ripert from Le Bernardin, and David Chang from Momofuku. Like, these are some big, heavy rollers who think she is brilliant, and not only brilliant, but human, which I think is super important. Let me see if I can get her picture to show up. That's her. She looks like a badass. I really want to support her restaurant. She's a self-taught chef, which I also think is important. Both her and Dominique don't go to culinary school. They are both, and yet look at them both, famous chefs, which I think is important about the culinary world and also about the arts, is that you can go to college and you can get your teaching. There is nothing wrong with that, but some of it just can come from within as well, which I think is why I find the food world so fascinating. I think it's a form of art. I think it's a form of expression, and listening to Ilana talk about the importance of foraging for mushrooms with her father or certain foods, this is a form of expression for her. So she has a restaurant named Elizabeth and a Japanese-inspired pub, Kitsune. Both are in Chicago. I want to go. Milkweed Inn, a farm and bed and breakfast in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and she was named one of the best new chefs by Food and Wine in 2016. Both books have lots of similarities. LGBTQ, well, lesbian, LGBTQ authors. Both of them, the experience of being on a farm is very important to them, and their relationships with their fathers are also very important, which I think anytime a memoir really goes into family ties, it's not fascinating, touching. I have such a unique relationship, or at least I think I have a unique relationship with my own father, that learning the role that parents play in other people's lives, I always find fascinating. I love the human connection. So this book also is broken up into parts, and I wish I could say that Ilana's childhood was flowery and wonderful, but there isn't. There's lots of dark times in it, and her struggle with her own identity, not only like, am I gay, am I straight, like it's much more than that. It goes so much deeper than that. Just knowing your place, or just feeling like you don't belong even in your own skin, it's paramount throughout this book. And food is the outlet, and the food sounds delicious. Boy, do I want to eat it. But her story is so much more touching. And I think that's also an interesting thing about memoirs, is like, if I meet these people, I want to go to your restaurant because your food sounds delicious, but I also want to go to your restaurant because I want to support you, because you've gone through such a journey to get where you are. You have battled loss and grief and self-identity, and you have found yourself. You are trying to continue to find yourself. You're trying to improve. All of that is so commendable. That's also why I like supporting restaurants and chefs. And that's also slightly not fair, because not everyone gets a book deal, obviously. But to each their own. I want to support different authors. I want to support different chefs, especially female chefs, especially LGBTQ chefs. Like, memoirs are beautiful. Food writing is beautiful. And I think memoirs can have as much emotional impact, potency. They can be heartbreaking, breathtaking. They can make you so angry and so happy, and for their successes and their failures, that sometimes I find them far more powerful than fiction. Because this is real. Someone really endured this. And I loved both of these books. They're definitely up there in the top this year. I don't know how I'm going to pick my top book list this year, given I've read over 65 books. Top 10? Does that sound fair? Maybe top 20? Depends on how many. It's still September. I still have some time to get through some more books. But anyway, those are my two food memoirs from female chefs in the LGBTQ community. I recommend both of them highly, and it concludes another episode of my book duos. Let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see next. I've filmed a couple more book duos, one focusing on food in Black America, one focusing on memoirs from food writers, one about the front of the house. So I'm balancing between memoirs with similarities in authors and similarities in topics. So let me know in the comments below what you would like to see next. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you guys. I love getting comments, even if a good portion are about my cat, one of my cats. One day I'll get Peachy on camera, but it'll take a miracle. Anyway, I hope you are well. If you want to support the channel, I have links to the books in the description below, and links to my Patreon and to my coffee subscription. I hope you are all well. Wear a mask, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.